Good afternoon, everyone. It is Sunday, July the 5th, 2020. It is currently 4:16 p.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from a very hot and very humid Texas. Yes, it is. It is miserable. Right now, if you walk outside, really, as soon as you walk outside, it hits you in the face, and it's basically telling you, you should go back inside because no reasonable person would walk outside right now. But yes, I had to walk outside to get in my car. But when I got here to the church, I parked as close to the door as I could so that I didn't have to be outside very long because it is hot, muggy, humid, miserable. Yuck. That's what it is today here in West Texas. Yes, I know I'm supposed to do all things without grumbling and complaining, and I think I'm complaining. No, I'm just stating a fact, okay? Because you need to know the weather here in West Texas. But yes, I'm coming to you live from West Texas, Ovalo, Texas, to be exact. It's hot, it's muggy, it's humid, but I'm inside. I have the AC cranked up, and I'm ready to ask you a very important question. And I want you to think about this, all right? I want you to think about this long and hard. I want you to really, really think about it. Do you believe that the year 2016 signified a major turning point in the history of Christianity in the United States of America? Do you believe 2016 signified a major turning point in the church here in the United States of America? Now, I'll make sure I make that very clear. I'm not talking about Christianity around the world, but here in the United States of America, did 2016 signify a major, significant, important turning point for Christianity in America? And did it signify a very important turning point, a very important, and not only a very important point, but a significant change in the church here in the United States of America? I want you to really think about that. A significant change, a major turning point, 2016. Now, specifically, do you believe the election of Donald Trump to becoming the president of the United States of America, do you believe that signified a major turning point for Christianity in the United States of America? And do you believe the election of Donald Trump to president of the United States of America signified a major turning point for the church in the United States of America? So obviously 2016, President Trump becomes President Trump. He takes office at that point. So we could really go the end of 2015 into 2016. Let me state it another way. Do you believe the election of Donald Trump to president, did that signify a major turning point in American Christianity and the church in the United States of America? Now, I want you to really, really think about that. I want you to really, really kind of let that bounce around in your mind. I personally believe it signified a major turning point. However, I believe it served as a major turning point because it demonstrated the problem that was within American Christianity, the problem that was in the American church prior to we even getting to 2015. See, leading up to 2015, I mean, and it had been true for year after year after year for a very long time going back, but there was a major problem developing in the American church in the United States of America. Biblical illiteracy was running rampant. It was everywhere. There was widespread biblical illiteracy within the church in America and within American Christianity. That cannot be denied. Statistic after statistic proved that. There was a biblical illiteracy. There was a illiteracy when it came to church history. There was a theological illiteracy. The church was becoming more and more worldly, becoming more and more distracted. Churches were trying to develop ways to attract people, to entertain people, not equipping saints, but trying to entertain them. The church was becoming a community club, an entertainment center, and the church was beginning to spiritually, we can say the church was spiritually falling apart. They may have been growing in numbers at different times leading up to 2015, but the church was in spiritual decline. The church was becoming more worldly. Church members were not maintaining a biblical theological perspective. It was a worldly perspective. The church was beginning to be overwhelmed with a wisdom that was earthly, that was sensual, that was devilish, referencing to the book of James. The godly wisdom was out the window, and the church was, there were these church movements that were coming in, and anything goes in the church. And there was a major spiritual problem in the church. And people, there was plenty of people trying to warn against it, but most of them were ignored, and the church went on its merry way, right? Spiritual decline, biblical illiteracy, not biblical wisdom, worldly wisdom, earthly wisdom, sensual wisdom. It was a mess, and the church was in a serious spiritual condition as we move towards 2015. That cannot be denied. Then we get to 2015, and we start moving towards the election. And there were some in the church who saw things happening in the world and were like, man, there's things happening in the world. Things are going crazy. The world's moving faster and faster away from a Christian worldview, from Christian influence. The world's getting worse and worse and worse. We have the rise of all of these things that are so counter to the Christian perspective. And many Christians, because of the spiritual state that they were in, because of the spiritual condition they were in, because of their worldly thinking and their fleshly thinking, they decided that the way to overcome some of the problems in the world was through fleshly means. And so I think in 2015 leading into 2016, we saw that the church turned to politics, turned to a political solution, not a spiritual solution. The church decided, nope, we're not going to worry about prayer, preaching and fasting. No, we're going to try to fix everything from a political standpoint. And the reason why is the church did not even realize what they were doing because they had been so spiritually compromised. They were such in a horrible spiritual condition. Instead of begging God for forgiveness and mercy and seeking revival and falling on their face to pray and to fast and to get back to preaching, things were so messed up that many in the church were like, nope, the world's messed up. Now, instead of looking to ourselves, we looked at the world and said, the world's messed up, and said, okay, we're going to fight this battle not through spiritual means, not through spiritual weapons, but in a fleshly way. And so the church, in large numbers, according to all the studies, somewhere between 80 and 84% of white evangelicals looked to Donald Trump to be the one to save us, the one to move us forward. And they came out, 80 to 84% of white evangelicals voted for Donald Trump. Now, the world was confused by the evangelical support for Donald Trump. They couldn't understand it. They're like, man, if you look at all the things Donald Trump has said, all the things that he has done, the things that we even have audio recordings of, all the things that he has done that typically Christians would condemn, Christians would be preaching against, would be speaking against over and over and over. I mean, it was Christians who were so upset with Bill Clinton and what he did, and Christians were the ones always yelling and that character matters in politics, and that Christians had an ethical and a moral and biblical obligation to vote for with a biblical mindset, not just about getting political power, but character matters and godliness matters and holiness matters. And there was article after article writing going, why are evangelicals supporting Trump? And they could not figure it out. And they were confused. And the church was called a bunch of hypocrites more than once by a lot of reporters because they could not figure it out. I believe the issue is the church was in such spiritual decline that 2016 signified basically the complete hijacking of much of Christianity from a political mindset. A political philosophy took over, and from 2016 up to 2020, we've seen up to the current date, we've seen this play out. The church is divided. The church argues everything from a political standpoint. They sound like Trump. They act like Trump. And it's like, what has happened? I believe 2016 served as a significant turning point. A major change occurred. And again, I believe the change was already there, but this made it very evident. That is something that I stand by, and I believe history will prove me right. You may argue against me now, and we'll have to wait and see. Now, I know others have a different perspective. Others say something like this. Look, here's the deal. 84% of white evangelicals did vote for President Trump. But out of that 84%, a large percentage of that percentage, they weren't voting for Trump because they saw him as a solution to everything. They weren't voting to him because because they were looking to him as a savior or him as the way that we're going to fix all of our problems. A large number of that 84%, those people still realize that the solution is prayer, it's fasting, it's preaching, it's getting the church getting back to what it needs to do. Many who voted for Trump did not see him as the savior, was not looking for politics as an answer, but they believe they have a moral obligation to vote. They believe that there's no point in voting for a third party. So they had two choices, President Trump or Hillary Clinton, and they had to choose between the lesser of two evils, and they went with President Trump. In spite of all of the things that had been reported, in spite of audio tapes and him saying horrible things, in spite of his past, they just said, look, both are evil. We're going to choose the lesser of two evils, and then we're going to get back to being the church. Some will say, look, that's what really happened. But others, yes, there are plenty of those who kind of see him as the savior and really have gone all full-blown politics. I think others would say many, though, that wasn't the case. They just voted for the lesser of two evils, and that helps explain why there was 80 to 84% of white evangelicals voting for him. And they don't believe it was a significant turning point, did not signify anything. It's just the way it was. All right, two different perspectives. I believe everything leading up to it is what led us to that point, and then what happened. And I believe the everything that's happened since the election of President Trump, following it, we've seen church after church become so politically minded, so like the way they think about so many issues. Any issue arises in the culture, they're there fighting, sounding like that. They're arguing it from a conservative perspective, a political conservative perspective. You're not hearing theological arguments. You're not hearing a spiritual argument. You're hearing this very fleshly mindset. I believe that everything that's happened since 2016, you can see the problem of the church continue. Fleshly minded, not a spiritual, they're not fighting it from a spiritual perspective, not from spiritual wisdom, but in a very fleshly way. They're trying to use carnal weapons and fighting their war through fleshly means and not spiritual weapons, and not seeing this as a spiritual war. They may claim it's a spiritual war because they know to say that, but then you listen to them talk about everything happening in the world, and they argue about this and argue about that, and everything they sounds like they're getting their marching orders from Trump's Twitter feed, not from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, not from the Apostle Paul, not from the Old Testament, not from the Bible. And that tells me everything I need to know. 2016 was a significant change. It was a significant turning point in American Christianity. I believe that, and I believe that we're fast moving to 2020, and I believe those spiritual problems have not gotten any better. The problems in the world have not gotten any better because the problems in the world are spiritual in nature. So I believe it was a significant turning point. Now, I try to offer both perspectives there, and I do, and make sure, I want to be very clear. There was plenty of that 84% number who they were only voting for Trump because it was the lesser of two evils. And I do believe there were many of them who did not believe that, politics is the answer. They just believe they have an obligation to vote. They voted for what they thought was the lesser of two evils, and they moved on with their life and stayed focused on spiritual things. I believe that there were plenty like that. But I believe that there was such a large number of Christians voting and thinking in such a way that was so contrary to the Bible that it demonstrated a significant change in American Christianity in the American church. And I believe the church has become so politicized, so politically hijacked, so politically compromised that I don't know where we're headed. I don't know where we're going moving forward. Now, I say all of that because in just a few weeks, a book is going to be released. And this book is kind of raising the questions that here, the evangelical world, we're at the crossroads. We're at the crossroads, and it asks the question, are we going to pass the Trump test? A book is going to be coming out in a couple of weeks saying that evangelicals are at a crossroads and asking the question, are we going to pass the Trump test? Now, I will argue that the book should have been written in 2015 because I believe we didn't pass the Trump test. I believe we failed the Trump test. I believe President Trump served as a test in this way. Forever, Christians had argued that when we vote, we have to vote with a biblical morality in mind. We have to vote from a biblical perspective. Character matters. Godliness matters. And we have to vote with these things in mind. President Trump came along. He said a lot of things that Christians liked, but he had all of this baggage and all of these problems and all the things he would say that were so crazy. And Christians were going to be tested. Were they going to follow a biblical morality, a biblical mindset, a spiritual position, or were they going to go, well, I like his policies. He says a lot of things I like. Well, forget character matters. Forget all of these things that we've said for so long. We're going to go with Trump. I believe, in a way, he served as a test. But again, let me make it clear. We failed the test not with Trump. We failed the test going years back when the church was in such spiritual decline and was becoming so distracted by the world and becoming so fleshly minded. President Trump was just the culmination of all of this coming to the forefront. The problem was going way back when people were saying, come on, the church is in trouble, and nobody was listening. Right now, how do we move forward? I don't know. But this book, let me tell you about the book, because I think it's important for people to at least know about it. The name of the book is Evangelicals at the Crossroads. Will we pass the Trump test? Evangelicals at the Crossroads. Will we pass the Trump test? This book will be released on July the 13th, 2020. It is currently available at Amazon.com for pre-order. That's Evangelicals at the Crossroads. Will we pass the Trump test? It's being sold for $9.99 for the Kindle version, and I don't know how much the paperback version is. I don't see a price currently there, but you can pre-order the book. All right. Evangelicals at the Crossroads. Will we pass the Trump test? And again, I almost feel like this book should have been written in 2015. But here we are moving to 2020. Will we pass the Trump test? Now, I don't know what's going to happen. I think currently, based on everything happening in our world and everything that's gone on, I think Trump is in grave danger of, I don't see how he's going to get reelected. I really don't. But once Joe Biden gets out there and starts talking, well, that could be so troublesome to so many people once Biden gets out there and starts talking, because, man, when he starts talking live or if there's actually televised debates, I think Biden's going to be in great trouble, and that may send people back to President Trump, and it may come down again, the lesser of two evils, and they choose one. Others may feel like that at this point, a lot of the evangelical world is going to move away from President Trump. I don't know where we're going to go. I just feel that the test was in 2015, 2016. I think the evangelicals who were wildly supportive of Trump in 2015 are going to be wildly supportive of Trump now. And they still see things from a fleshly, unbiblical way, because I don't believe there's been any widespread spiritual improvement in the church. Still biblically illiterate, still theologically illiterate, and still distracted by all of the things of the world, and not engaged in serious Bible study and prayer, and not even being able to think from a biblical perspective. That is still true. But maybe some will not. But it's just interesting that they're raising the question now. All right, here's some information about the book. Again, the name of the book, Evangelicals at the Crossroads. Will we pass the Trump test? We have never had a president like Donald Trump. Some say he is the best president ever. Others say he is the absolute worst. Some look to him as a savior figure, while others compare him to the Antichrist. Some say that as Christians, we must support this pro-life, pro-family, pro-Christian president. Others say that by standing with him, we have destroyed our Christian witness. Now, there's no question the world has written plenty of articles going, what in the world? What are you talking about? And to be fair, look, if President Obama would have done some of the things Trump has said and done, Christians would have been at President Obama's throat, accusing him of everything. I mean, they already accused him of everything. I remember trying to take up for President Obama a few times just because people were saying things that were not true and accurate, and Christians went crazy on me. Again, white evangelicals, white Christians went crazy on me. But then when President Trump came around, it's like, oh, well, I've heard he's a baby Christian, we're not trying to elect a pastor. We're not trying to elect a pope. It's like, well, why did we hold other presidents to moral standards? But okay. So the world has been a little bit confused. There's no question about that. How do we sort this out? Did God specially raise up Donald Trump to be president? Are Christians called to vote for him, or should they vote him out of office? In this unique book, based on wide-ranging reading and research, Dr. Michael Brown presents both the pro-Trump and anti-Trump positions, laying out the challenges we must face if we are to pass the Trump test. Now, I don't know if currently Trump still serves as kind of the test. I think 2015, 2016 was the initial test. I don't know if it's still a test anymore. I don't know. I think the test now, every day it happens, the church and Christians react, and you listen, you're like, that sounds so fleshly and so ungodly and so unbiblical and so just not theological in any way, shape, or form. It's just the church has become so distracted by the things happening in the world that we have completely forgotten about the Great Commission. We have completely forgotten about our biblical mandate. So I don't know if he serves as a test in 2020. I don't know. I think it's an interesting idea for a book to say, hey, we're at this crossroads. The evangelicals are at a crossroads. And then look at the pro-Trump position and the anti-Trump position and try to figure out what's the best way to move forward, and are we going to, quote unquote, pass the Trump test? Now, I don't know how we pass the Trump test according to this book. This book may be arguing, hey, the only way to pass the Trump test is to vote for him. Or the book may try to argue that the only way to pass the Trump test is to vote him out of office. I don't know. I see the whole political game as one big corrupt game where people care nothing about the only thing they care about is position and power. They make all kinds of promises that to simply manipulate you and giving them their vote so they can get the power, they can get the position, they can get the money, and you get forgotten about relatively quick. Unless you are a big time donor who can give all kinds of money, then you get access, and now that position and that power will work for your interest and work for you. But if you're just the average person, all you really have is one vote. That's all you have. And if you're not in a state of great significance to get that vote, that you're even overlooked. I think politicians are in it for themselves, not in it for the interest of the country. This is why I believe there should be term limits. I believe there should be term limits for every office. You can serve one time, period. That's where when they get elected, they can work and not worried about getting reelected. They can do what's best. We need politicians willing to do what's best, and that in what's doing best sometimes is not going to be best for their political future. Sometimes you're going to make hard decisions that's going to make people mad. Our country is trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars in debt. I don't know the exact number anymore. When I say trillions and trillions, I should probably say billions and billions, millions and millions of dollars in debt. That would probably be more accurate. We are way, way, way in debt. We continue to spend and print money, and nothing's going to be done about it because no politician wants to create policies that will cut back in spending and cut down certain programs. So I don't know, where the end is from that perspective, but we need politicians to do these kinds of things. I think the whole political system is a mess and corrupt, and I want nothing to do with it. I want nothing. I don't know. I don't even want to get near it. I don't even want to get within breathing. You talk about social distancing. I want political distancing because the whole thing drives me absolutely crazy. But, you know, some Christians, if you don't vote, then they think you're, you know, of Satan and whatever. But there you have it. Was 2016 a significant turning point? I believe it was. I believe it was, and I believe it demonstrated the spiritual condition of the church, where the church was in such poor spiritual condition they couldn't even see things from a spiritual perspective. And that 2015, 2016 signified the completion of the political hijacking of the church. I believe the political hijacking of the church started, you could probably even go back to the 80s, 70s, you know, different things like the moral majority. You had these different groups within Christianity. But I believe by the time you get to 2015, 16, the hijacking is complete. It's done. And I don't know what moving forward, I think the political hijacking, the political division, and the ideological division and racial divisions and all the other problems to tearing this country apart are not going to get better. And let me tell you, politics is not going to solve it. Politics is not going to resolve the problems. We need spiritual revival. We need the church to be the church. We don't need the church to be an arm of any political party, Republican or Democrat. We need the church to be the church more than ever. We've got to get the politicizing of the church. We've got to get the politics out of the church and the church out of politics. I know I preach that over and over and over, and I know it drives some people crazy, but I'm telling you. So I would recommend at least reading the book. You may be pro-Trump. You may be anti-Trump. I don't know your political position. But I think it's a book that you should, you know, consider. I'll try to create a blog post at theologycentral.net, theologycentral.net. Go to the blog section, theologycentral.net. Go to the blog section. I'll have a picture of the book. I'll have a description of the book. I will have the name of the book, and I'll have a link to Amazon so that you could pre-order and purchase the book if you want to read it. Again, this will be released on July the 13th. The name of the book, Evangelicals at the Crossroads. Will we pass the Trump test? Again, I believe the book is about 4 years too late. I really do. We should be writing a book going, what's the way forward for the church? I think the test, I think we came to the crossroads, and I think we took the wrong road, okay? And I don't think we passed the test. That's my own feeling, and I believe history is going to prove me to be right. All right, and there you have it. Evangelicals at the Crossroads. Will we pass the Trump test? This is written by Michael L. Brown. He does a Christian radio program. I don't always agree. I definitely don't agree with some of his theology, but I am interested to see, you know, he's going to present the pro-Trump side and the anti-Trump position and laying out the challenges we must face. Now, the challenges we must face, though, are not going to be overcome politically. They're not going to be They're not going to be fixed. They're not going to be overcome that way. The church is lost its whole. It's lost the plot. It's lost the narrative. It's lost everything, and the church is in major free fall. That's where I think we are. And when I say the church, I'm not saying every single church. There's always exceptions. I'm not saying that all 84% of white evangelicals voted for Trump because they believed politics was the solution and they were trying to fight the war from a fleshly means. I'm not saying that. I believe there was a significant number that were. And I'm here in Texas, not far down the road. I can go to Dallas, Texas. There's a church in Dallas, Texas that's, so politically hijacked that it's insane. They had Vice President Pence there not too long ago. And it's just full-blown political idolatry. It's the pro-Trump political idolatry in some churches is an abomination. And something has gone horribly wrong. All right. You can email me your thoughts, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening. God bless.